A quick real estate market update for Portland, Oregon, now that we're into the fall time, and a little walk through the redwoods. If you're a home buyer or even a seller in the Portland metropolitan area, this video is going to be helpful for you. And if you're interested in learning a little bit about the redwoods, or maybe you didn't even know there's redwoods in Portland, Oregon, stick around. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Living in Oregon, Seth Marchant, licensed broker in the state of Oregon with the Home Team Brokers here. Well, fall is officially here in Oregon. I'd say the last couple of years, it's felt, the contrast has felt a little bit sharper than it has in previous years or just previous decades. Usually it would kind of start raining end of August and kind of through September. Whereas now the summer seems to run all the way through September up until October, and we kind of don't see that rainy weather until October, which is right around when we start to get the change in color in the leaves and those deciduous trees start dropping those leaves on the ground. And we've also got quite a few clear days in the forecast and a lot of actually high 60s and 70s throughout October. So a little bit different than previous years. It's been kind of nice to have that sharp contrast where summer is over and all of a sudden now you're into fall time. Whereas in the previous years, it's kind of like you would ease into fall time from summertime, like over the course of a month, kind of throughout September. So what's the real estate market looked like over the past few months? Well, inventory at the beginning of this year, and yes, we talk about inventory a lot, I'll get to that why in just a moment, but inventory at the beginning of this year was climbing a lot slower than it did the previous year, but inventory now is climbing a lot faster than it did this same time last year. And the reason why is interest rates, of course. You may have guessed that. Around this time last year is when we first hit the sixes. And it was the beginning of the year last year. You only had to go back to about March or April or so, actually, back when we were in the threes. It feels like forever ago that we were in the threes, but it was just the beginning of last year. And it's really more so the change in rate that slows people down more so than the actual rate itself. In other words, it takes people time to adjust to rates. And where we're at right now is around the mid sevens. And at the beginning of the year, we had close to low sixes. So people are kind of still getting used to that point difference, which, as you probably know, if you've played around with a mortgage calculator or done these numbers, a 1% interest rate makes a pretty dramatic effect on your mortgage payment. So now consequently, we are at 2.9 months of inventory, which, as you can see here, is as high as inventory as we've had in recent years. What does that 2.9 number mean? It means if nothing else changed and no new homes came to the market, it would take 2.9 months for all of those homes to sell. So why do we talk about inventory? Like I mentioned, a lot of people judge if this is a buyer's or a seller's market based on inventory. That number isn't going to be the only number that determines these things, of course. It's very nuanced, but that is a big factor in determining if it's a seller's or buyer's market. A lot of people say 3 to 6 months indicates a buyer's market. And from what we can see, inventory isn't yet done climbing. We'll expect it probably to taper off here pretty soon as we get into November. Sellers that have their home on the market in November will sometimes withdraw their home because they don't want to sell or have to move during the holidays, and then they'll bring their home back to market in the new year, whether it's January, February, probably most likely spring. So inventory may even get above 2.9. We might get into the 3 months worth of inventory. So it's that rate shock of people adjusting to the rates being in the mid sevens that's really slowed the market down, really slowed sales down. Sales are down, pendings are down, everything's pretty much down with the exception of inventory. Inventory is now up. And from what the Fed's signaling, it doesn't look like rates are going to go back down anytime soon. Looks like they're at least going to stay right around where they are, maybe even go up again for at least the foreseeable future. So like at least a year or so is kind of what we're hearing. There's one of those trees that I mentioned to you in the background. Probably doesn't really pick it up too much. Probably doesn't pick it up too much with the GoPro. But if you like redwoods, I'll tag this location so you can come visit this area as well. So if you're buyers out there, this is about as good as time as you've had as far as being able to leverage the market and get some concessions with sellers. Of course, you have the higher interest rates, but we're about as close to a buyer's market as we've seen in recent years. I often get asked, is it a better time to buy or to sell in the wintertime or the summertime? For homeowners, it's typically better to sell in the summertime. Why? Because you're going to have more buyers. More buyers means more competition. More competition means things like bidding wars, getting something above your list price, over asking. So typically, home sellers theoretically are going to have a greater opportunity to get more money for their home in the summertime. And the inverse is sort of true. For all of you buyers, you typically have a better opportunity to get more concessions from a seller in the wintertime because you're competing with fewer buyers. Now, the downside, of course, of buying in the wintertime is just inventory. Inventory is typically lower. Like I said, it's going to taper off here with people not wanting to move around the holidays. So usually you have less to choose from. That's a big downside for buyers buying in the wintertime. Now, me personally, I bought my last home in the winter in December. So if it works for you, if you can find what you want, it's definitely a great time for buyers here in this upcoming winter. We've seen over a third, close to 40% of homes taking price cuts. In a normal market, it would be about a third of homes. So anything above a third of homes is a sort of bearish for home values, meaning once you kind of get into that territory, you would expect that home values are not going to sustain. If not, they might even go down a little bit, because price cuts above the average of a third of the market indicate that the buyer sentiment is really not that strong right now. But as far as what we're actually seeing on the ground and all the anecdotes, it's really just case by case. For all you people that are shopping online, you might still be seeing homes that you've been following going under contract very quickly, and we're still seeing that too. The really desirable, meaning homes that are around the average price point, homes that are move-in ready, homes that don't need much, homes that are in desirable areas, are typically going pending within a couple of days. They are still seeing multiple offers. But right now, buyers probably have about as much leverage as they've had in the past few years. And because of rates, there's really no indicators that sales are going to pick up anytime in the near future. Rates, as we've seen now, are pushing higher inventory. There's a lot of people that said that if rates were to go back down, we would see inventory go back up. And that's a possibility, of course, but for sure we know that inventory is going up when rates are going up. The theory behind inventory going up when rates go down is that most people in this country have an interest rate of about 3%, and they don't want to give that up for 6 or 7 or 8% or whatever it is when they move. So a lot of people, a lot of sellers, they call it the golden handcuffs. People are locked down. They don't want to move. And the theory being that if rates came back down, then those people would put their home in the market and we'd have a lot more inventory. That might happen. That could happen. I've heard a lot of people say that, of course. But for sure, we know that when rates go up, inventory is going to go up as well. Beyond that, the job market is strong, supposedly. Sometimes those numbers are hard to decipher. And there's no indication of anything like foreclosures, a lot of foreclosures coming, which are things that might lead to a lot more inventory coming to market, especially new inventory. New listings are way down. So for all you people right now that are following things online, Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, all that stuff, and you might be saying, well, it doesn't really feel like the inventory is as high as it's been in the last couple of years. That's because inventory is just starting to build up. These are homes that have been on the market for a while. We're not seeing a whole lot of new listings. I know somebody that sends out a lot of mailers, typically thousands of mailers to homeowners, usually just fishing for things like foreclosures, and usually they'll get some sort of response. They've said the last month or so, it's been crickets. You know, one thing that's going to be different between now and the potential of any sort of home crash that people have possibly been predicting over the last couple of years, difference between now and the previous home crash that we had in 07, 08, a lot of people have equity in their home, so that gives them a lot more flexibility if they do have to sell. So there's no data and a lot of anecdotes that I'm hearing. There's nothing to indicate that there's a lot of sellers out there that are worried about being able to afford their mortgage, or if they had to sell, being able to sell their home. So at this point, it really only looks like rates are going to keep inventory higher. Again, not a whole lot of new listings though, just inventory building up on the market. Some other data that indicates that buyers have the advantage right now. The average sold price is just about -1%. So meaning the average sales price is just below what the list price is. So on average, sellers are getting slightly below list price. Now for us, for the buyers that we represent, they typically end up around 3 or 4% below the asking price. When the market's been really hot, of course, it's been 1, 2, 3% above list price. And another little anecdote for you. I have a home under contract right now in the Portland metropolitan area representing a buyer, and it's about as good of a deal as I've seen in the last few years. And when I say good deal, what I mean is this is one of those homes that I was talking about that typically moves very quickly. Great neighborhood, it's in great shape, move-in ready, doesn't need anything, but the buyer's got a really, really good deal, you know, indicating that the sellers just hadn't seen much activity. So there's a lot of deals to be had out there for you buyers right now. For you sellers, strategizing to get the highest possible dollar for your home is paramount now. If you're thinking about buying or selling, if you have any questions about moving to the Portland metropolitan area, I invite you to call, text, email, hit the QR code that you see on the screen there. If you're watching from TV, that'll take you to our website where you can find all of our contact information. Again, my name is Seth Marchant. I'm a licensed broker in the state of Oregon with the Home Team Brokers. And if this video helped, give me a thumbs up. Feel free to leave me a comment. And if you want to see more videos about what it's like to live in Oregon, including walks through the redwoods, make sure and subscribe to this channel. Until next time, take care, everyone.